Hey, Mason here. Just wanting to make a video on my day 2 update. So I've cleared up to around tier 10 maps, so like 8 to 10 range. So basically late yellow maps. And I have also made the swap over to Flicker Strike. So I'll go through my gems after. Actually, no, I'll just do my stuff now so people can have the information. Flicker Strike is supported by Pinpoint Critical, Perpetual Charge, Ancestral Core, Lightning Attunement. Herald of Thunder is supported by Ambush, Overreach, Armament, Focus, Charge Staff, Innovate, Shock, Duration, and then Shock Conduit. Cast on Crit is Profane Ritual with Charge and Profusion and Boundless Energy. Ritual is Unleash, Compressed Duration, Rapid Casting. Infernal Cry is Cooldown Recovery and Raging Cry. Storm Wave is Upheaval, Rage, Armament, and Innovate, and Sacrifice. So, one thing I want to cover quickly is links in Flicker Strike. Something that was not possible before. Okay, first, Flicker Strike got nerfed. The quality actually got changed, and it actually was not matching what was in the patch notes, which is a bit of a bait. So, in the patch notes, it said that it would be 20% chance to gain 20% more damage per power charge consumed. They have changed it. It is now 20% more crit chance, which is a very big deal because the other one was like 140% more damage, and now it's only 20% more crit chance. It is more crit chance, which has an advantage, but that's something to keep in mind because previously it was supposed to be like a ton more single target. But they have also added some new supports, and because of this new quality, we can actually cap crit extremely early, which you normally cannot do with Flicker Strike without using 2 support gems. So I'm out of supports, I think. But the main one, previously what you would do is you would use Pinpoint Critical, this one here, and you would use one called Inevitable Critical. And both of those combined together would allow you to cap your crit at 100%. But because of this more crit chance, I'm actually able to get to 100% crit. You can see here, 100% crit with just Pinpoint Critical. Which is very early in the game, considering I'm only level 79 and I don't have my 3rd Ascendancy. Furthermore, they also did this new support they added called Ancestral Core. This support is extremely powerful because ancestrally boosted slams have 30% more damage or increased, and then strikes will target 2 additional enemies. Trigger skills cannot be ancestrally boosted, and they count as being empowered. The fact that it targets 2 additional enemies makes the clear for Flicker extremely good with this particular support in. It is not a bossing support because you can't actually target, You can't actually target bosses multiple times with Flicker Strike. It only works on clearing maps. But this is a huge important factor into clearing. If you've watched my Flicker Strike videos from last league, the biggest issue with Flicker Strike is you need to have some sort of AoE projection around your character while flickering in order to kill the mobs so that you can progress to the next pack of mobs. This single-handedly solves that by itself and will be used as a primary clearing gem. So that's kind of talking about this. We have Perpetual Charge Steal, which is a little bit nerfed. I think it was 35% to 25%. And we also have Lightning Attunement. If you've also watched my previous video, because we're actually playing a Hollow Palm gains only physical damage based on the skill level, not other types of damage. We need a reliable source of shock in order for Herald of Thunder to proc, because Herald of Thunder needs to kill a shocked enemy. We have Charge Staff, but it's also nice to have the extra lightning damage on Flicker Strike, which you can see here is like 800. So it's like around 50%, 50-50, with a little bit more on the lightning damage for Flicker Strike here. That's why I'm using a Lightning Attunement to help me proc with Herald of Thunder. And then this is just for clear, like I mentioned before. You'll see this, I'll do a map demonstration and you will see this as these like little clones, and they also hit mobs when I flicker past them. Okay, Herald of Thunder is very standard. Ambush, so that it crits, 54% crit here, and with Ambush it's 100% because you're doubling it, which means that it will proc cast on crit, like it will give energy for it. Overreach is for the AoE, and Heralds don't miss. This is for damage, and this is for damage. Herald of Thunder is not specifically mentioned, I think, but it can't shock. So if I can have a look, maybe it's mentioned. Yes, it says here, cannot shock, which is why this is just a free 25% more damage support. Charge stuff is using Innovate, Shock, Prolonged Duration, and Shock Conduction. Innovate was changed, the wording on it, which means that you can't use it in Heralds anymore, which is a pity. So we have to put it in here now. And in order to try and get it to activate, we're using Shock support here, we're using Prolonged Duration here for quality of life, and then we're using this so that the shocks will spread and try and shock enemies in an AoE. It's mainly just a shocking tool, and it also gives a bit more flat lightning. Custom Crit is your main source of power charge generation. My Custom Crit is not qualified, and it's level 16. Profane Ritual, the level doesn't matter. Charge Profusion, level 2. The extra charge, extra different type of charge, I'm not really sure how to use it yet because I don't have enough spirit, but there's probably some ways I will be using that later. And Balance Energy for more energy. If you have an extra socket here, you can put in the one that gives you a refund on energy. I think it's got energy retention. That one will work. This is your self-cast Profane Ritual. Just make sure here that it is in Weapon Set 2. And in my Weapon Set 2, I have a Spectre here. Sorry, Scepter and a Focus. And my Weapon Set 1, I'm armed. You want Unleash so that it casts on 3 of them. This to make it so that it comes to you faster, and this to make it more nicer to cast when you're walking around. What you do is you'll swap to your weapon set, and then you will cast. And then you'll get your charges, swap back, and you'll keep going. Normally that's how this works. Infernal Cry, heavily nerfed by the way. I have a level 7, but the higher level this is, the better. I just don't have enough strength. Cooldown Recovery and Raging Cry. Premediation was removed from the game, which used to give you more damage on empowered attacks, which is a pity, because that means that Flicker Strike lost 15% more damage. The next one here to talk about is Stormwave. So this is your main clear skill, aside from Flicker Strike. It's also a very nice quality of life because it's ranged. A key thing I didn't mention about the previous video is that Ice Strike is melee, and it's a very, you die a lot. You have to get close, and the mobs are so dangerous in Abyss and stuff like that. So Stormwave ends up being way, way better in terms of quality of life and not dying. Stormwave is linked with Upheaval. I have tried the other Fissure Gem. What was it called? This one here, Branching Fissures, but it's just not as good. And then it's linked with Rage 3, because the more attack speed, Elemental Armament for damage, and Innovate to also help with the Innovate uptime. So either on Charge Stuff or Stormwave. I have it on both. Sacrifice is my last support. It's used to sacrifice your own minions with Profane Ritual. Something to note that it is now forced to be used in both weapon sets, which means that you cannot put it on only on your weapon set 2. In order to have this setup running, you need Herald of Thunder, 30 Spirit, Cast on Crit, 100 Spirit, or 90 Spirit if you have quality, and Sacrifice, 60 Spirit, so 190 Spirit, or 180 Spirit if you have quality. In terms of my gear, I have made some upgrades. This helmet I crafted myself. The way I crafted this was I had the Energy Shield T1 increased Energy Shield and a res, so the Tier 2 res, and then I used, that was blue, right? And then I used an essence. So I'll show you an example. I have another one in here somewhere. This one here, something like this, but with a better suffix on res, like something like this as well. For example, the way I craft this is I bought a resistance essence, and then I hit it with a resistance essence to get the lightning res. So I have 2 res and the first line, and then I desecrate it using the bones. This one here. Preserved Rib on the item. It hit a prefix, and then I exalted it twice, and I have 6 mod with 1 desecrated prefix. I unveil with the Omen that allows you to reroll because the gear was really good. And then I managed to hit maximum energy shield flat. And so I clicked that, and that's the end result for this helmet. This helmet is really good. Obviously you can get higher, but it's still really good for very early in the league, especially since it's only day 2. My chest piece was crafted basically in the same way. You can see here that the life was T5 life was desecrated on the 5 res, but this chest piece is pretty bad. The way you craft this is you look for flat energy shield and ES, and then you use an essence to add the increased evasion and energy shield line. And then after that, if you have an empty prefix, you want to desecrate to try and get the prefix, and you just exalt the rest of the lines on once they are open. Basically, that's all my crafts. This ring, exactly the same way, I think. It was start with 2 good prefixes or 2 good lines, desecrate 1. So I think it was cold res and lightning damage on this base, which was a good base, and then desecrate and then double exalt, and then unveil the desecration, the modifier. Same for this one here. This one here, I think I actually picked up off the floor and I just exalted, but the idea is the same. That's basically how I crafted all my gear. This one here was from the campaign. It was just +2 melee skill gems and some ES, as well as the leech. And then this one here was also crafted exactly the same way as the helmet. It was a chaos. I think it was a movement speed and chaos, or movement speed and cold. And then I essenced the increased energy shield line here, the T3 increased energy shield here. And then I desecrate the prefix. So it was a 50-50 desecrate. Unveil with the Omen, got a low tier energy shield, flat energy shield, but it's still energy shield. And then exalt the last line, which is the attributes, and I think one of the resistances or something like that. So overall, crafting is pretty deterministic if you know what you're doing, as long as you have good bases. So for example, I can show you some of the bases, like these 2 bases here are good. I'm not sure if I have any more. It's like some random bases. This is like tier 2. This one here is like tier 2 as well, dex, tier 3 increased. This one here is tier 2 flat, tier 3 flat, sorry. So stuff like that. You pick up bases, I store them, and eventually I'm going to either use Recombinator or I'm going to craft them just like I showed you how with the helm and the boots. Okay, this is my builds are pretty bad. This one here I bought for, I think it was like 15 chaos. This is for quality of life. It doesn't actually give you damage, and you may opt into getting a melee skill gems amulet. But I like the quality of life it gives, and so I bought this instead. The previous amulet I was using was just a random resistance amulet from the campaign, which I showed in the last video. Okay, skill tree now. This is the skill tree that I've settled with. It's obviously still a work in progress. I'll just talk a little bit about, so you're go through these crit damage nodes here now because you're doing crit, and you're also going through this here for the crit damage, the extra crit the increased damage. You want to make sure you grab this power charge wheel here, this power charge wheel here, and this power charge wheel here. I'm also taking this spectral ward up here, and I'm pathing that to subfused mask for defensives. So those 2 there. And obviously hollow palm, because that's the entire point of the build. And then we're going over here to grab these crit damage and crit nodes. And then we're grabbing some of these here using the second weapon set, as well as this lightning damage and the extra chance to shock. Over here, we're grabbing all of these nodes as standard. Right now, we're pathing down here to get the crit chance. Otherwise, you can path up here to get the increased damage, if you have enough crit. And then we're going up here to get this crit wheel. We're going up here to get days. I'll talk a bit about that in a second. And there's another crit wheel down here, and there's another crit cluster down here. So you're grabbing all the crit clusters in the monk area, and then you're grabbing all the power charge ones and then the defensive ones. And I'll just talk a little bit about some of the new things that they added. So first is this particular wheel here. This one here says, skills have a 10% chance to not remove charges, but still count as consuming them. This is basically 10% more damage for Flicker Strike, and it kind of compensates for the nerf to Perpetual Charge, which used to be 35%. I'm pathing over this side to get the Dexterity, just because it's attributes, and we don't really care about the Power Charge duration, at least not in the current setup. We're also grabbing this here for the Mana Leech, and I have Leech on my gloves. So I have 5% here, and I think that's it. Yeah, 5% and the mana on kill from the ring implicit. The way you get this is you use an Abyss Essence. I think it was an Abyss Essence. Honestly, I can't remember anymore, but it might have been something else. One of the Abyss ways. Okay, the next thing to talk about is this cluster here. This thing gives you a chance to daze and increase damage against dazed enemies. It gives quite a lot too. 40% is very high. This one here gives 15%, so that's like 55%, which is a lot in 2 points. And this one here gives chance to daze. So in terms of efficiency for points, this is very efficient if you can daze the enemy, and you are using Stormwave on bosses to shock them before you Flicker Strike, which kind of makes it a free increased damage bonus if you just make sure that they're dazed and shocked before you Flicker Strike. So 5% daze on here and 10% daze on here. Here is 15% daze here. And I'm also, because we're getting daze, we might as well get some other classes. There's this cluster here. This one here has 5% chance to daze. This one here has 5% chance to daze. And both of these 2 are good. We want lightning damage and we want chance to shock so that we can actually proc Herald of Thunder. So that's a good. And then this is just like extra fizz damage as extra lightning against dazed enemies. And this is extra fizz, again fizz as extra cold against dazed enemies. So it's just free damage here. And it seems to be relatively efficient. You get 5% here and 5% here, that's 10% daze. And then you get 5% here and 10% here, that's 15%. So you have 25% chance to daze, which is like 1 in 4 hits, basically. It's pretty consistent from my experience so far. The last one here is this little new cluster here. This cluster is very good for this build because you're using custom crit, right? And the custom crit is an energy skill, and you want it to generate energy when you map so that you can always be flicker striking. And this gives you increased energy and crit, which is both what you want. This gives you crit, which is great. You want that. And this is the same as the one before. And this one here gives you increased crit chance if you triggered a skill recently. This is kind of useless because I'm capping my crit without this. But it does give you the increased energy gain if you've dealt a critical hit recently. So this wheel gives you some crit and it gives you some energy regen for your custom crit, which helps it have better uptime to keep your power charges up and coming. The last bit to talk about is the weapon swap. It's very simple, honestly. So you have minions, they have timers. You want to get all the reviving, like the faster revive ones here. So there's like 2 here, there's 2 here, and there's 1 here. This one here is like a new node they added. It seems useful. It says it's similar. So it only works if they're like respawning. But it's just a 1-pointer, and then we might as well grab that. And the last thing we're grabbing is the faster energy should recharge here. This is for meditate once we get my 3rd ascendancy. And for my ascendancy, I've taken the spirit one, and I've taken the lightning damage one. The next one to take would either be meditate if you would like defenses, or the ignore crits, because you're crit capped with, I clicked into the map. Because you're crit capped with Flicker Strike, it will get the full benefit of the ignore elemental res node. So this particular node here. So that makes it basically pretty free. Okay, I think that more or less covers it. I'm going to do a quick demo map, just to kind of show you guys what the build looks like. Stormwave is way better than Ice Strike in my opinion after playing it. Just because you just don't die to stuff because you're melee. Like you die to so much shit if you're melee. And it's just mega feels bad, like honestly. This is a pretty easy map. I'm not going to do anything too challenging at the moment. But yeah, we'll see. I'll show you how this goes. And this amulet here will be basically all my power charge sustain. And it's like basically really, really strong. It's just quality of life though. It's not actually damage. Okay, so we grab our power charges with the weapon swap. Because of the amulet, we are already at 7 power charges. We use it on charge stuff and then we do the same thing. So we only need to cast Profane Ritual twice. And then we start sprinting and looking for mobs to Flicker Strike to. So right now, there's only 3 mobs there, so we need to use Profane Ritual again to gain charges. And then we do it here again. And then now the charges will start coming to us. And there's no mobs here, so we keep going. So you can see that my power charge is back to 7 again because of the amulet. It would probably be less, if not 7. And so that amulet really helps with kind of keeping your power charges sustained and keeping yourself flicker striking as much as you can. Probably going to just mute myself now and just let the map play itself out without any editing so that you can have a good idea of how the character actually looks like.
thunderous demise. Mighty fall.
My king nears.
Okay, so that wraps it up for the map showcase. Just a reminder to everyone watching, you will need 190 spirit if you have no quality on cast on critical, or 180 if you do have quality on cast on critical. This early in the league, my character is like what? Is it cooked? That's played 1 day, 5 hours. My Pilfering Ring has 1 Divine and 76 Exalts and 21 Chaos, so basically not much. With this budget that I have, getting the Spirit on gear is basically impossible unless you're playing Invoker or you get very lucky. And that's why I'm playing Invoker, because I do not want to deal with Spirit, and I would like to use my suffixes for resistances instead. But yeah, that's why Invoker I think is very budget friendly. In terms of the Flicker Strike quality change, people are like, it's only technically losing 20% more damage. However, I do think that there is some potential to cap the crit on Flicker Strike without Pinpoint Critical, because Pinpoint Critical has the 30% less crit damage bonus like mod, like extra line on it, which is like 30% less damage. So if there's a way to get around this, then this will be very, very good. With the new Thunder Fist gloves, I think they're very, very strong. They'll probably be my next upgrade. But with these gloves, they're very expensive too. Hopefully you can actually get some decent damage from Crackling Palm. From what I've seen of the numbers, seem to be very high, as well as the flat lightning damage as well. Also very good. This will help a lot with Herald Thunder because it gives you lightning that you're punching with. So it's a very big deal. And that will likely be my next upgrade. As well as just like the next upgrade I buy from the market, and then I'll just be crafting my own gear constantly. But yeah, I think that more or less wraps it up for the video. If you like the video, feel free to subscribe. I will be continuing to make updates for this, for the Flicker Strike setup. I will just mention quickly that if you are struggling with Ice Strike, play Stormwave instead. It is just infinitely better because you're ranged. And all the mobs in Abyss are just like super rippy at the moment. So I would advise that if you do have the opportunity to play Stormwave with Bell, maybe with Ice Strike to get combo, instead of playing the Ice Strike, just pure Ice Strike. Pure Ice Strike is a bit of a pain and you would die a lot. With Stormwave, you would die less often. With Flicker Strike, you will still die because Flicker Strike makes you uncontrollable. Okay. One more thing. If you're doing bosses, you put momentum into here and just make sure you're a certain distance away from the boss. And you can also put close combat instead of lightning achievement. That's all personal preference. Cool. That wraps it up for the video. Thanks for watching and hope you have a great day.